Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 3 of the anime series Kuzu no Honkai, and yeah, I'm back talking about this one again. This is a series I'm just really frustrated over. I'm really a mixed bag as to how I'm left feeling after every single episode, and it's very much a mixture of good and bad. The bad is starting to tip the scales ever so slightly, in the favor of I don't even know if I want to watch this anymore. I don't. What I think the one of the biggest problems I'm having with it, and it's interesting to me because I am seeing people loving it. I've seen some forum posts over on my anime list. People are loving it, they're championing it, they're calling it the most realistic depiction of romance or romantic affiliations or relationships with other people that they've ever seen, and all these things. And first and foremost, it makes me want to react by saying, do not ever base interpersonal connectivity, whether that be romantic, familial, friendship-wise, in any sort of association you can think of, on a fictional depiction, whether that be an anime series, a TV show, a movie, a novel, and all these kinds of things. Never base your reality on a fictional reality, and there were some people who were making comments that dangerously skirted along those lines where it's like, get out and experience life a little bit. Don't let your gauging of how relationships are be based on an anime. In this case, one that is, one of the things it's breaking my last nerve is all of the overly sexual tones to the piece. I thought, for example, the first sequence in the episode, picking up right where we left off in the previous, where Hanabe's friend has very much come out to her as well as come on to her at the same time. She's kissed her, she's kind of straddled her, and she's exposing herself. I felt this was done with a measured level of subtlety. They did kind of linger on the tonguing and the kissing and everything like that. And it did unnerve me a little bit, and mostly because I'm not prudish by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like it's undermining the validity of the drama, because it's skirting the lines of like a hentai, or it's skirting the lines of something much more pervy than something that should be investing you in the characters. The entire sequence with Hanabi and Mugi later on in the episode, where she realizes for whatever reason she's much more comfortable around him. She's not sure how she feels about another girl, whether she feels attracted to her, whether she feels attracted to Mugi, whether, how that attraction, how deep that goes. She's brought to tears saying, I wish I could love you. I think in a manner of speaking, she's saying, I wish I could be happy here with you in the here and now, rather than be left wanting something else, something greater. Perhaps. Much as she would probably wish he would be satisfied with her. That they were both enough for each other to be satisfied. And of course, you have the hand job. She jerks him off. And I'm just like, okay, there's a certain level of realism to that, of course, but it is done in a fashion that I don't feel represents the drama and the conflict. It's more skirting the lines of a hentai pervy framework, and it's really, discombobulating the balance in my mind, appreciating those more realistic aspects to the series, with that in tow, with it having to get all pervy like that. And I saw people commenting, oh, this turned me on, this was so hot, and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, that's not what the purpose is. You're not supposed to be, you have a natural reaction to a point of being turned on, certain things, if you let your mind go rolling with it and everything. But for the case in point, the episode depiction in and of itself, it's not meant to be something to turn you on. It's not Skinamax. It's not a hentai. It's not, and these are things that it's skirting the lines of which I feel is undermining the drama. For me as a viewer myself, the single individual that I am, I represent only my own viewpoint. If you happen to share that viewpoint, more power to you. Let me know in the comments below, as always. But it's an interesting turn of events where you have this character coming out and then coming on to Hanabi in the beginning, causing this internal conflict that sees her seeking out Mugi and trying to understand what it is exactly she's going through. And in her time spent with him in the aftermath, where they're in a, like, what was it, Benny's or something, like a Denny's ripoff, like, for all intents and purposes, talking about, oh, I got to clean my clothes, you got your crap all over it and everything. Do they happen to see his love interest, the teacher, the former tutor, coming in with a guy who's really manhandly, and I'm wondering, is she a prostitute? Is she, like, moonlighting as a hooker of some kind, a call girl or an escort or something along those lines, because she seemed to really want to keep this guy from blowing his stack. Saving that for later, most notably, probably, And then when confronted later, the next day or whatever it is, in school by Hanabi, asking her, who was that guy? Was that your boyfriend and all this stuff? We're getting a lot of internal conflict and dialogue from Hanabi suggesting, does she know that, Mugi has feelings for her? Has she perceived in seeing us there together that it was kind of wrong to be there after hours? And all these weird and strange, conflictual things that I don't know what the grand design is for exactly, except to show Hanabi's, inborn confusion of what she's feeling, of how she's feeling, of who she wants to interact with and how she wants to interact with them. And getting a little bit of a backstory on Mugi to that effect as well, where he had this girl that, it almost seems like she had the hots for him. She was turned on by him and decided to sort of use him, deflower him in a manner of speaking, and he hasn't quite gotten over that or come to understand that. It's very much falling in line with the same sort of framework of those people championing the realism of this particular anime that I want to forewarn, do not consider this the way real relationships work. It's still very fictionalized. Even if you watch a documentary which is about the lives of real people, it is still presented with a slant. It is still presented with a viewpoint, with a certain voice, a certain perspective. So even that, you can't wholly say this is realism, this is truth, this is reality. This is a fictional production. It's an anime based on a manga or whatever it is by, I believe, a hentai author. I might be mistaken, but I think somebody told me that somewhere along the lines, and or something similar. And it's one of those things where, okay, it is giving you a very sort of realistic portrayal of that confusion, of that, tumultuous aspect of interconnectivity with other people, romantic and otherwise. But again, because there is this unsavory, borderlining unsavory, salacious quality to it, it's not glorifying or beautifying the sexual encounters, but it's depicting it in a way that is, I think the word would be uncomfortable. There's a vulnerability to it. There is an uncomfortable factor to it. You kind of, at least for me, it's like, I don't know. This is, it's supposed to have a resounding effect like that, like capturing the internal mechanism of what's going on in these characters' minds, hearts and minds, because they're just not sure what they're doing. They're trying to find their place in the world. They're trying to find each other, find themselves, find who amongst the people they interact with are satisfying and, are going to answer to those needs and wants and all that kind of stuff. And so there is that level of it. But then you got people who are watching this are like, oh man, that turned me on, man, that was so hot, oh, that was sexy, and all this kind of stuff, and like, oh, this is the most realistic romantic drama I've ever seen in so many years, and best anime ever, and all this kind of stuff, and it's just like my life, and like, huh? What? I don't know. I feel as conflicted as the characters are being depicted as in this episode, but for wholly different reasons. I appreciate those realistic aspects. I appreciate the qualms that are being depicted in these characters' lives and how they're leading them and the choices they're having set before them that they have to ultimately face and endure and make a conclusion on, how they're going to direct their lives, what directive they're going to take. I appreciate all of that, but I feel, again, like it is weighed down and burdened by unnecessarily long sexual encounter sequences that, there's an uncomfortability factor. There's a factor that I think some people miss the point of them. And again, just a very sort of, it's an undermining aspect to it for me because it just seems pervy and wrong. Not that these characters would get together, not that they would become physically intimate, but just the way it's depicted. The way it's being depicted unnerves me and does nothing for me as far as I'm not going to watch an anime to get turned on. Oh, it's happened. I'm human. There are characters who are like, wow, it's something that just happens on occasion. You can't quantify or predict where that's going to happen in a given anime or with a given character. Just, something that occurs. I'm not watching this show. I would never have thought to watch this show to get turned on, and some people are doing that very thing. And I have to wonder, how well calibrated their own mental psychosis is if they're getting really hot and bothered and turned on by this and exalting the realism, comparing it to the real world, to real life. And it's again, a point of conflict for me. That you have to have both of these, you have all of this sort of great storytelling aesthetic with the realism and the character-driven aspects, but then you have to sort of throw paint at it with a very sort of dumbed-down, overly pervy, very vulnerable, uncomfortable, in this episode we had more than one sequence like this. And so, I mean, yes, people do behave like this. Yes, people can probably relate to it overall. But it's again, I feel like I don't feel like I'm seeing the intimate moments of two real flesh and blood people. I feel like I am watching a show with characters who are trying to give us somewhat of an estimation, at least someone's estimation, of what relationships are like, or can be like, or will inevitably be like, or whatever their positioning is on all of that. I feel like I'm watching characters portraying something as close to reality as it can without quite getting there, while also trying to offer up this, I don't know if it thinks it's doing it in an unsavory way, or if it thinks it's doing it in an enticing way, but offering us up these sexual encounters that are somewhat explicit in their kissing and all the noises and the saliva and all of that stuff, that it just rubs me the wrong way as a viewer. That's not what I'm looking for in wanting to watch this show. I don't think it speaks to realism. It's kind of like somebody watching porn and saying that's what sex must be like. To me, that's what I'm hearing from people when I'm reading comments like that. That's not what I want to watch, So I don't know. I don't know if I'm just going off on a tangent, if this makes any effing sense whatsoever. Once again, I offer up my reluctance to say whether or not for certain I will be back in the next episode to talk about it, to discuss it, to review it, to air my frustrations and conflictions about it. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see when I finally get to that episode and watch it and everything like that. And I really, I'll tell you, this video could have gone up hours earlier were it not for the fact that I was left with almost no desire immediately after the episode to say anything about it. I was just kind of like, well, wow, there that was. And it took me some hours of just sort of stewing on it and mulling it over and really quantifying for myself how I was feeling in the aftermath of it, to then be motivated to want to come on and say, well, you know, I said that after the last episode I might not come back on and talk about it. I might just cut it off there. But there was enough in this episode, enough, you know, conflicting aspects to it for me personally, that led me to want to come on, because I felt like I didn't want to just leave it where I'd left off on the previous video. I wanted to explain why I was frustrated. I wanted to explain why I might not want to cover this anymore, and the issues I've taken with some of the people exalting it as the greatest thing ever or the hottest thing ever, and how I don't really find that it's supposed to be any of those things. So you can take that or leave it, you know, put it in your pipe and smoke it, whatever floats your boat. Put that in the comments below. I love having conversations with you guys, and I'd love to hear what your reaction to this episode was. If you think I completely missed the mark, if you think I'm completely not, you know, encapsulating any form of understanding as you relate to it, or if you highly agree with me, anything goes. And so, yeah, otherwise that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace.